We should just say before we get started that our sympathies are with the Ohio State University students. There's been a tragedy there, and we hope that people will recover. Welcome, Goldie.
Thank you, Barbara. Glad to be here.
I think one of the things that's troubling me, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about it, are the horrific fires that have impacted Israel. Initially, when the first fire was set, it wasn't thought to be arson, but it's been so well timed in so many different places throughout Israel. Israel's a small country, but when you start seeing fires in the north, fires in the south, fires around Jerusalem, Haifa in particular has been parts of Haifa are still blazing with the wildfires raging through the city for days now, forests and homes. And when you look at the population of about 280,000 people, and a quarter of the city's population, and maybe even more by now, have been evacuated from their homes, it's quite tragic. I know that what people will say is that the dry weather and winds have contributed to make it worse. But I know that in the Knesset, Goldie, there's been a move to actually relabel arsonists as terrorists so that they can be dealt with and be sentenced as terrorists. That's really important.
That's the key question, Barbara. Do you believe these are acts of terrorism, or do you think these were just natural fires? What do you think?
Well, I actually watched a video, and I think you had seen that video as well, of a Holocaust survivor, how tragic, a woman who lost her whole family, makes her way, has been living in Israel happily with family, and has photographs of whatever treasures she has, and loses her home. And she particularly said she watched a Molotov cocktail being thrown at her home, which set her that area alight. So my feeling is that people have observed other people setting alight fires deliberately. So one tends to think you can't condemn how many people are arsonists, but it's ironic that it's around all the areas around the Jerusalem hills. Wherever there are forests, this seems to have been tempting people to set fire. Again, cannot condemn, but there have been some arrests. I hope that answers your question, Goldie. What is your view?
I think you're right. It seems to maybe there were dry conditions, so maybe there were some, spontaneous fires. But I do think, like the stabbings, it just seems another, call it lone wolf or individual acts of terrorism, where you just need to have a Molotov cocktail or some matches, and you can cause a lot of damage. And it really is a massive tragedy because since the foundation of the Jewish state and even before that, a central theme was always planting trees. And that's how they made Israel green, and that's how they improved climate. That's how they improved climate and agricultural conditions in Israel. And, most most Jewish kids, so when they was children, have always, contributed to the Jewish National Fund, which has been planting trees, and now to burn them all down and to see the destruction of those forests be celebrated all over the world. I think, you've been tracking that as well.
Yes. In my youth, we always celebrated events by planting trees in Israel. And I'm sure many Jewish people will remember you planted trees in Israel, however many trees, however much money you wanted to donate, it was measured in the number of trees. And I think Jews have always had a respect for nature, a respect for the environment, a respect for trees. Isn't it really upsetting that these people who have been caught, let's call them arsonists, let's call them terrorists, do not have a respect for nature, do not have a respect for trees? And in fact, there's been a lot that's been written about the love of the land of Jews throughout the decades, almost, we could say, centuries, of cultivating. In the Jewish religion, there's something called Shemitah. You don't over-cultivate the land. Every 7th year, the land lies fallow in order to revitalize the land. When agriculturists, people like Walter Loudermilk, wrote books, 1936, 1937, a non-Jew was sent by the American government to see what was happening in the Middle East. I know they were looking for biblical wheat at some points, and they were looking for for how Israel had cultivated, how the Jews had cultivated. And what was interesting, wherever the Arabs were living, the land was decimated. Where the Jews were living, they were cultivating. They were even growing grapes, making wine. We see wineries today as a result of the respect for the land.
The distinctions between Jewish agriculture and farming and Arab agriculture farming are quite material. The Arabs have always used goats, which is a very lazy way to be a farmer. The goats are very destructive. They root animals and they destroy vegetation. And the Arabs have, relied on olive trees, which are natural, and native to the Middle East and don't take much care and attention and will survive everything and anything. Whilst Israelis, started building terraces, draining swamps, and improving the agriculture dramatically using drip agriculture, drip water technology, which is basically using every drip to be focused on growing a specific vegetable or plant or grain. And that's why if you look at satellite maps of the Middle East, you can actually see the borders from the maps because the one side is dry and the other side is green. You can actually see the border without even having a fence.
Another another facet of the unfortunate fires that are raging is that Palestinians are celebrating the fires on social media. They're posting congratulatory messages on Facebook saying, I quote, "enjoying the burnings of your homes, you Zionists," one wrote. Others described the fires as divine retribution for whatever. It's very upsetting. Israel on fire, Israel is burning, some of these things that are being said that are really very upsetting.
But I think what was good, as you pointed out, I think in a list there was a lot of international support that came in to help the Israelis with these fires.
That's a very valid point, and some of the countries are very interesting. I mean, I know that it started with Greece and Cyprus, which see themselves as allies of Israel, but I found it wonderful that Egypt and Jordan, which are predominantly, Arab countries, Muslim countries, have stepped in very, very rapidly to help, and so it's gone. Russia, Turkey. I think that Bibi Netanyahu actually asked Russia to help with their Beryevs, I think, are the planes that came across with able to hold a huge amount of water. And the United States sent one large plane, their largest, that was able to hold tons of water to help. It's quite tragic. You think of the ramifications of all these people who've been dislocated, don't have their homes, where they're going to be living, or what's going to happen in terms of feeding these people. The ramifications are huge.
Moving on, we've discussed previously about UN resolutions that keep coming and are very one-sided and anti-Israel. But there was a little bit of good news, which refers to disaster relief, which is something we've just been discussing. That the Israeli medical response team has received the highest ranking by not only the United Nations, but also by WHO, World Health Organization. And basically, they've been given a pass to be the first on the scene to offer immediate attention. And to get this ranking, you need to have a level 2 field hospital, which provides advanced first aid. But you also have to have a level 3 field hospital, which can operate and carry out intensive surgeries at the same time. So what's fascinating and interesting is Israel is the first emergency medical team to receive such a classification, which has set a strict set of criteria created by the World Health Organization to classify foreign medical teams responding to sudden disasters.
That's one of the first pro-Israel decisions that have been made in the United Nations. But Israel really deserves that, Goldie, because Israel was first on the scene when it comes to natural disasters. I mean, many of these countries have been the recipients of help from Israel. Where Turkey and Greece have had natural disasters, Haiti,
Philippines,
Turkey,
Nepal, Japan.
Right.
So it's just amazing that Israelis can get into these centers quicker than anybody else in the world and actually
so they deserve
make
the
a
award.
Difference. Correct.
Okay, we're going to take a break on that, the award given to Israel for for their rescue team. Thank you very much for that comment. We'll take a break. We'll be with you, and please call us at 914-636-0110 when we return.
With business news at 20 past the hour, here's the latest update from the Fox Business Network on 1460 WVOX.
From the Fox Business Network. As for Black Friday winners, big department stores with online operations and Amazon led the way on the day after Thanksgiving. Online sales were the big winner, coming in at $5.3 billion over the two-day period. That's a nearly 18% increase from last year. A regulatory decision against Boeing today. The World Trade Organization ruled that Boeing benefited from an illegal tax break. The plane maker received the break from Washington State starting in 2013 to build its wide-body plane in the state. There's a cigarette designed for millennials called Marlboro Black, which has breathed life into the Marlboro brand. Philip Morris makes the lower-priced cigarette. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Carol Zimmer.
Say goodbye to thieves. Say hello to CudaCam by Barracuda Networks, the leader in cloud security and storage solutions. CudaCam is a complete cloud-hosted video surveillance solution that captures high-quality footage when motion is detected. Just plug in one or more CudaCam cameras with no network or camera configuration. Video evidence is automatically encrypted and stored in the Barracuda cloud for secure access from any web browser or mobile device. Visit CudaCam.com to learn why CudaCam is so easy on your wallet, yet so hard to avoid.
The Wall Street Journal has called us the quintessential community station in America.
Impressive.
AM 1460, WVOX.
WVOX.
Hello, listeners. This is Barbara Fix on WVOX, standing in for Rabbi Wall, who has some happy news in his family. So he's taken a trip to California. He'll be back next week. To our listeners, I'm going to give you the call-in number. If you have any questions, if you have anything to add, we love hearing from you. Please call us. We don't care how controversial you are or what you contribute. Our number here is, of course, area 914 in New Rochelle, 636-0110. Please call us. In the meanwhile, we are here with Goldie. He has wonderful perspectives on what is happening, whether it pertains to current events, whether it pertains to the Middle East. We were talking about the wildfires, Israel's contribution, and I think we're going to switch topics, Goldie. You have a fascinating study called the Pew study.
You know, I think the pink elephant in the room is the recent election and the appointees and the fact that the Jews voted predominantly for Clinton. And not happy with the Trump administration or any of his cabinet picks. So we're trying to put it in some perspective.
So the Jews are very divided.
Yes. And I've got the Pew study, which was the last comprehensive survey done on American Judaism. It was done in 2013. And I'm told that the numbers have deteriorated materially since then, but this is the last real snapshot. So in 2013, there were 6 million American Jews, which was about 2% of the U.S. population then. Majority were proud to be Jewish. 6 out of 10 were intermarrying. 2/3 did not belong to a synagogue. 1/3 of them identified with Reform Judaism. 18% identified with Conservative Judaism. And 10% identified with Orthodox Judaism. 3 out of 10 didn't identify with any denomination. As I said, since this survey was completed in 2013, the numbers are believed to have deteriorated. Coming back to this recent election,
When you use the word deteriorated, how do you mean?
I think there's been more assimilation, less synagogue attending, and I would think that the conservative 18%, I understand that has been squeezed. There's been some growth at Reform, and the Orthodox has been steady, Eddie, because they have the best demographics. This past election, I understand 71% of American Jews voted Democrat for Hillary Clinton. Of the 30% who did not vote, most are Orthodox or Russian Jews. So conservative, secular Jews voting Republican are a small minority. And, that's the beginning of the discussion about what I call the pink elephant in the room.
Do you think that becomes a bit divisive? Do you think Jews get criticized as a group without people understanding the nuances?
Correct. I think it's very confusing, and I think it's confusing for American Jews. We were just discussing the ADL right now. The director of the ADL is a young man called Jonathan Greenblatt. Before he assumed his role at the ADL, which is the Anti-Defamation League, which is something that was run by Abe Foxman for many, many years, and historically has been a very important Jewish organization. He worked, this is Joel Greenblatt, worked for Valerie Jarrett.
Jonathan Greenblatt?
Jonathan Greenblatt, worked for Valerie Jarrett at the Obama White House. And he seems to have used his position to support the Obama administration policies. He has been leading the charge against Breitbart and the alt-right as a home for anti-Semites, when in actuality, as we discussed previously, we think Breitbart is one of the most pro-Israel websites in the United States. He's been attacking many of the cabinet picks, and we were just discussing one of the most interesting cabinet picks is Governor Nikki Haley.
Before you go on to that, has the ADL come in for criticism? Have they been criticized?
One of our experts have told me the Zionist Organization of America, the ZOA, is very upset with the ADL. But I haven't heard too much criticism from other major substantial Jewish organizations.
I think there has been criticism, from what I understand, when Dershowitz weighed in and took Jonathan Greenblatt to task.
Dershowitz.
So I think he's aware that he is being criticized, and apparently he mealy-mouthed gave half an apology for jumping in and using that as a political platform rather than a factual platform.
I think Dershowitz has come to the rescue of Breitbart and Steve Bannon quite clearly. But when I'm thinking of Jewish organizations, I'm thinking of Malcolm Hohenheim, Council of Presidents of major organizations. And I haven't heard any rounding, comprehensive condemnation of the ADL and this guy Greenblatt. I may be wrong, and other people may. If you know it, please let me know.
So call us at 636-0110 if you have an opinion. If you've heard anything about the criticisms of the ADL, as he's criticized Bannon, jumped in there and criticized him. But when you talked about the division of the Jews, I'd like to jump in about Jill Stein, who is an independent Green Party person, and she's contesting the elections. She wants a recount, which is very interesting because she raised approximately $3 million throughout her campaign.
And the rumor is that it comes from George Soros. And I understand you wrote a letter to Jill Stein.
I did. I wrote to her that I congratulated her on the votes that she did get, but I had reservations because in life there are winners and losers, and I put that she was not even close to winning the election. So why would she not be a gracious lady? In fact, I referred to the people who were protesting as wimps and crybabies who cannot accept loss. Or there's no dignity in protesting that the elections were not fair and square, and the fact that the president-elect will not be their president. I suggested that she drop the pointless exercise, although I suspect it's just actually one step in the direction of a plan where she was asked to contest the elections and have a recount. And then this gave it was the thin end of the wedge whereby the Democrats could jump in, and they didn't look bad if Jill Stein had already asked for a recount. So that's my view on that.
Listen, I'm with you. But, coming back to our friend at the ADL, I understand the ADL in the last week or two actually had a conference on anti-Semitism. And Caroline Glick, writing in the Jerusalem Post, pointed out the ADL is drawing a distinction between being pro-Israel and Jew-friendly. And the ADL has made it pretty clear that that some anti-Semites can support Israel. And being anti-Israel does not make you an anti-Semite.
I think that's very important, and I'd like to come back to that when we come back. We will take a break and then call us at, again, 636-0110. We'd love for you to weigh in by phone.
With world and national news, here is the latest update from Fox News Radio on 1460 WVOX.
This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Pam Huso. The chaos is over on the campus of Ohio State University.
A vehicle ran into a group of pedestrians, people gathered on the street corner, resulting in several injuries. The driver then got out and used a weapon to cut several people who were then transported to local hospitals.
University President Dr. Michael Drake, officials say multiple people were hurt. Their injuries are not considered to be life-threatening. Minutes after the attack, the suspect was taken out by a university police officer.
He engaged a suspect who had gotten out of the vehicle after hitting pedestrians. The suspect cut multiple individuals. The officer engaged the suspect and shot and killed the suspect.
Monica Mull is the school's director of public safety. Classes at Ohio State University are canceled for the rest of the day. This is a Fox News Alert.
More services, more specialists, and more reasons to stay close to home. As a part of New York Presbyterian, Lawrence Hospital is making some changes. We're expanding our expertise in cardiology, orthopedics, sports medicine, urology, neurology, and cancer, bringing Westchester patients closer to the quality of care at New York's #1 hospital, New York Presbyterian Lawrence Hospital. We're ready to spread the news. Visit nyp.org/Lawrence to learn more.
Steve Pellettieri's Eye on Weather is brought to you on WVOX by Energy and the Indian Point Energy Center, right for New York.
Forecast: Westchester County and the vicinity for today. We'll see increasing clouds through the afternoon. Our highs today will climb to around 50. 30% chance of showers through the overnight. Our lows falling back into the low to middle 40s. Periods of rain, some heavy on Tuesday, maybe even a thunderstorm through the afternoon. Highs will range near 60 with southeast winds gusting to 30. More rain possible Tuesday night. Continuing periods of rain into Wednesday. Wednesday's highs close to 60. Mostly sunny. Highs 55 to 60 on Thursday. I'm Steve Pellettieri, Junior reporting for 1460 WVOX.
Teresa Motko is a senior systems engineer at Indian Point Energy Center.
I live with my husband Rich and our 2 kids, less than 4 miles from Indian Point. So when people talk about safety, it really is a personal issue to me. I think it's important to understand how rigorous the safety culture is at Indian Point. My engineering team trains constantly, and inspectors from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission are on site at all times, overseeing our operations. Indian Point has also invested over $1 billion in upgrades and strengthened safety equipment and backup systems. And every day, my team and I make sure that these layers upon layers of safety and security at Indian Point are as strong as they can be.
Nearly 1,000 people like Teresa work at Indian Point, and safety is their single most important mission. Learn more about the plant that generates about 25% of the power used in the city and Westchester each year at rightfornewyork.com.
Good morning, Westchester. Weekdays from 6 to 9, exclusively on 1460 WVOX and WVOX.com.
Hello, this is Barbara Fix. I'm standing in for Rabbi Wall. We look forward to having him back next week. In the meanwhile, please, listeners, call us with any comments. Whether you agree or you disagree, we're happy to hear from you always. 914-636-0110. We took a break, and as just before we took a break, my guest, Goldie, was discussing with us a very interesting article that was written by Caroline Glick. Goldie, would you like to discuss
she was referring to a conference on anti-Semitism run by the ADL in the last week or two, where they basically drew a line and basically said, just because you're anti-Israel doesn't make you an anti-Semite, and just because you're pro-Israel doesn't not make you an anti-Semite. Which, where I'm coming from, this is crazy doublespeak. And the ADL used the conference to legitimize the BDS movement, which is the boycott, divest, and sanctions movement, which, fortunately, not gaining much momentum in, let's say, the Fortune 500, but certainly a huge issue on campus and causing a lot of discomfort to many young Jewish students who have to confront this very loud movement driven by, Palestinians and the left.
And just for those people who are joining us, ADL stands for the Anti-Defamation League, which monitor anti-Semitism and very aware of racism. So that's who we're discussing, has become quite controversial. But go on, Goldie. You're talking about what's very tough on college campuses.
I think it's shocking that the ADL has given a green light to all these groups, the seal of approval, that it's okay to support BDS, and you never ever can be accused of being an anti-Semite.
There's a big move to block that is very discriminatory. Boycott and divesting is really would hamper an economy enormously. So there's been a move to stop that, and hopefully that movement will grow. And I think one of the people that you had mentioned would be the new representative of the United Nations.
That's fortunately,
Nikki
with
Haley.
the Trump administration, one of his first appointees is Governor Nikki Haley, who is the daughter of Indian immigrants. And a year ago, and she's going to replace Samantha Powers, who was Obama's representative to the United Nations.
Who was a very controversial
Who was
figure.
very controversial. And despite her heritage of human rights, as we discussed, has left an amazing tragedy in Syria, where they say as many as 500,000 have been killed. And as we discussed, 12 million Syrians have been displaced.
She was also very
Samantha
highly
Power.
criticized for her view on Rwanda.
Yeah,
she targeted Rwanda very unfairly. Rwanda was a country that was recovering from genocide, and she went after the president, who was supposed to take on another few years. I know because I'm friendly with the Rwandan ambassador, and they were very, very distressed.
Fascinating about Samantha Powers.
Very distressed with Samantha Powers' role.
She's being replaced by Governor Nikki Haley, who a year ago or more, in June of 2015, became the first governor to introduce legislation against Israeli boycotts. So, you just can't make this up. You basically got the ADL saying full speed ahead on BDS, supported by J Street, New Israel Fund, et cetera, and you have a new governor who's being criticized with everybody else, particularly by Jews, is saying, we don't like this cabinet appointee, and she was the first state to adopt a measure. And many other states are now following because of her. So
that's a welcome relief, and hopefully there will be a change at the ADL. But let's move on to Let's move on. You had another topic that you wanted to discuss, which I think was regarding
a gentleman, Dan Greenfield, reporting in Front Page Magazine. He announced that the ADL announced support for Keith Ellison, and we discussed this last week. Who is Keith Ellison? So now Keith Ellison is now endorsed by Senator Schumer, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, the left wing of the DNC, is supported by CARE, but most of the Muslim groups in the United States.
CARE stands for, it's CAIR, Council for American Islamic Relations.
And as we were discussing, it looks like the Democratic Party, is now doubling down on a losing position.
In what way, Goldie?
And that they're going hard left. I mean, will remain to be seen whether Keith Ellison gets it, the nomination or not. But he's the contenders, Howard Dean, who's no angel, he's not a perfect choice either. But the fact that Keith Ellison is a contender and a lead contender, to me, is frankly shocking, to say the least.
You know what bothers me, Goldie, and I'm just going to weigh in here, where the former Sanders spokeswoman, Simone Sanders, who was the spokeswoman for Bernie Sanders, obviously no relation, but she was the spokeswoman for his presidential campaign, appeared on CNN to weigh in on the future of the DNC and the Democratic Party. And she, Simone Sanders, the black lady, dismissed the idea of Howard Dean returning as DNC chairman, commenting, and I quote, "We don't need white people leading the Democratic Party right now." Are we seeing the Democratic Party moving to be along racist? It's very upsetting to me, of course, being a South African, you two who left South Africa because we despised the whole apartheid regime, which was grossly unfair. And we come to a country where we have a black woman saying we don't need need white people leading the Democratic Party right now.
Well, race seems to be the third rail of American political sociology. No one really wants to go there. But cynically speaking, the Democratic Party did see the world in terms of race, that if you are a black American, they expected you to vote for them. If you're a Latin American American, they expected you to vote for them. And they thought they had locked up these votes. They thought they had locked up the black vote, the Latin vote, the Asian vote, the Jewish vote. And as soon as any political party takes any one particular group for granted, then, things will start going haywire. And they did go haywire. I mean, I think the Trump election was a revolution, and it was a refutation of certainly of the Obama administration. I've been in this country 36 years, and I think race relations have been the most tense in the last 8 years. I don't know, do you have a different opinion, Barbara?
No, I have the same opinion. It's very upsetting for me because I just feel we're all people. I was very active with Rabbi Wall's Coalition for Mutual Respect, which was so beautiful, bringing people of all colors, all races, all religion together in our New Rochelle. And he did such a wonderful job. He celebrated Martin Luther King Day in January with a wonderful coming together of people. He brought all the churches together. And I'm finding it very, very depressing, Goldie, because we leave as immigrants for a reason of apartheid. We didn't leave for any other reason. And we had to leave things behind. When we're talking as South Africans, we couldn't take money out of the country. We had to leave with almost the possessions we were able to carry, come and start as immigrants from scratch with very little identity, some of us very few qualifications. You came here as a lawyer, had to start again, feed your family with nothing. Coming to what was, to me, the perfect democracy. So I'm finding this a very distressing that a country like this, which treasured democracy, would then be divided.
Diversity and pluralism, who believed in affirmative action, making rights for historical wrongs. We land up in this situation. But coming back to Keith Ellison, our favorite subject, there was an incredible article in Tablet magazine which came out this weekend by a guy, Jeff Ballabon. And Ballabon wrote an extensive, heartfelt article. Basically says, Keith Ellison and I go back to the early 90s in Minnesota. I was legal counsel to Senator Danforth, and he was a civil rights lawyer and a talk show host. He pointed out that Ellison used an alias, Keith Hakim, and on numerous occasions, under the alias Keith Hakim, defended Farrakhan and the nation of Israel. And this was through 2000, when he decided to run for state representative in Minnesota. In 2006, while running for U.S. Congress, he conveniently distanced himself from Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. So that's only 10 years ago. And he has taken a hard anti-Israel line ever since being in Congress.
Well, that's very distressing. We're going to have to take a break now. But thank you for sharing with us, Goldie, about Keith Ellison. And please call us on 914-636-0110. We'll be back after our break for our last segment.
With world and national news, here is the latest update from Fox News Radio on 1460 WVOX.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. An attack at Ohio State University has left 10 people hurt, one critically. Ohio State President Dr. Michael Drake describes what happened.
A vehicle ran into a group of pedestrians, people gathered on the street corner, resulting in several injuries. The driver then got out and used a weapon to cut several people.
The suspect fatally shot by police who say a butcher knife was recovered. The investigation continues. President-elect Donald Trump still reviewing candidates for Secretary of State, meeting today with retired General David Petraeus.
It does come just a few days after he told BBC Radio that he would take a position in the Trump administration because he says if the commander-in-chief asks you to serve, the only answer is yes, Mr. President.
Fox's Peter Doocy outside Trump Tower in New York. Tomorrow, Mr. Trump meets again with Mitt Romney. Fox News, we report, you decide.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I want to be a glass countertop in a new home.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's best birthday present.
When I grow up, I want to be a football stadium.
When I grow up, I want to be a warm fleece on a cold day.
When I grow up, I want to be a fancy backsplash.
I want to be a bike that races around the country.
When I grow up,
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
I want to be a rocking chair on a sunny porch.
I want to be a skyscraper.
I want to be When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. A public service advertisement brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Whitney Radio has some very good news for anyone who wants to keep their car looking like new after an accident. New Rochelle now has its very own high-tech modern body repair shop, and your car is in for a real treat. Laser Frame and Body Repair is the name of this spectacular new entity, and it's just around the corner from our radio stations on 74 Potter Avenue. Owner Martin Goldsmith's new Laser Frame and Body Repair is now open, specializing in foreign and domestic automobiles, and they're even an authorized Lexus repair shop. Laser Frame and Body Repair guarantees all work done to your car and offers free estimates, and they also make it easy for you with free pickup and delivery and 24-hour towing. So if your car needs some cleaning up after an accident, rely on Martin Goldsmith's new Laser Frame and Body Repair on 74 Potter Avenue in New Rochelle, just off 5th Avenue. They know the business and they know how to get your car back on the road looking like new. The number is 914-632-8100, 632-8100. They take great pride in your car, and it shows. Laser Frame and Body Repair, now opened on Potter Avenue in New Rochelle.
Hello, my name is Catherine Miller, and I am the host of a program here on WVOX called Dialogue on Divorce. I'll be talking with experts on all aspects of divorce, money, children, law, you name it, and you are invited to join the conversation. I'm the founder of the Miller Law Group in New Rochelle, a law firm dedicated to helping divorcing couples find appropriate out-of-court solutions. I feel it is of great importance to let the public in on the significance of choosing a way to get divorced once your decision has been made. I want to talk to you every other Wednesday at 5 p.m. about how to make divorce less contentious and, of course, less costly. So let me guide you every other Wednesday at 5 p.m. on 1460 AM for a half hour of a dialogue on divorce.
Be sure to listen to WVOX Local News early mornings on Good Morning Westchester, brought to you exclusively by Trustco Bank. Need a mortgage? Think Trustco Bank for great savings with no PMI, no tax escrow, and no broker's fees. For more details, go to trustcobank.com. Trustco Bank, your hometown bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
This is WVOX at 1460. For Premium Point, Scarsdale, and Purchase.
WVOX. Hello, this is Barbara Fix. I am filling in for Rabbi Wall, who's away. He'll be back with us next week. We are very happy to be here with WVOX. We thank you for your time and your space to have the interesting discussions. We would love you to call in 636-0110 with any comments. And I'm very happy to have with me Goldie, who is very knowledgeable about history, geography, Israel, the Middle East, and American politics. Always interesting to hear from you, Goldie. We've had a lot of not so happy news. We have huge divisions in the parties, Democrats and Republicans with the elections. We have fires burning. So we've been through a lot of topics. But I think we would like to talk about some wonderful things, end on the note of a positive note about Israel, because Israel is flourishing despite the tragedies now of the burning fires.
As we've discussed on the show for some time, the storm in the Middle East seems to have blown over Israel. Not 100%, but, the Islamic global terrorism is going to be a bigger issue in Europe, and they're totally unprepared for it. And even the United States, and I'm not sure we're prepared for it. But the Israelis, I think, are relieved that it's been the end of the Obama administration. They seem to be very happy so far with the Trump administration. And Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu made a material, significant speech on Wednesday, the 23rd of November, at the new Waldorf Astoria in Jerusalem at the Jerusalem Pope Conference. And he says, everyone thinks I'm a gloomy, pessimistic guy. And he said, no, I'm supremely optimistic. I've never, ever been more hopeful. I'm hopeful about Israel. I'm hopeful about the region. And he said, I'm even hopeful about the UN.
Did he elaborate?
Yes, he said, this revolution we've seen in technology is played into Israel's strong suit. So he said, if you looked at some of the largest companies 10, 15 years ago, I think there was one IT company in the largest 10 companies of the world. That was Microsoft. And the rest were energy companies or manufacturing companies. But he says, if you look at the 10 fastest or 10 largest almost material companies in the world today, they're all technology companies. And as we discussed, Intel is in Israel. And he points out, he said, yeah, the Intel semiconductor factory outside Haifa is the largest semiconductor factory in the world. But he says, Israel has a tech economy. They too have evolved from an agriculture economy to a tech technology, to a tech economy. And in the last 10 years, this has been very, very good for Israel. He says not only are they a power in technology, but in automotive technology, in cyber, in agriculture, in energy, and in the Internet of Things. So he says we are right in the center of everything good. We are an innovation nation, and we could even go, we've discussed before, the Jews worship the book. We always believed knowledge was power. And the Internet has basically opened up the seas of the world to Israel, which was a small country surrounded by enemies. But with the Internet and with the satellite, Israeli companies can disrupt anything, do anything, and sell anything all over the world. And
what role would you say does the fact that every Israeli has to serve to protect the country? And they go into the army. The intelligence has to be, they don't have a choice. They have to be spot on with intelligence. And would you say that has morphed into the development of scientific breakthroughs?
Look, absolutely. I mean, listen, there's plenty disagreement in Israel, and we could spend hours discussing that. But the fact that that basically most children in Israel go to public school, and by the time they get to serve, the Israeli army has a file on those young people, and then they've done aptitude tests, and they know who's going to be a combat soldier and who's going to go into the IT units. And as we discussed on this program before, 8200, 8100, which are the top technology units in the Israeli military. When you graduate, you have to do 6 years. So these kids are graduating at 23, 24, 25. It's considered like you've got a PhD. And everybody in the world wants to hire you, even though you haven't actually had a PhD. But he didn't only talk about technology. He talked about a project in Holon, where they're saving children's hearts. And he says thousands of little kids are coming from Tanzania, Zanzibar, Iraq, Yazidis, from Mosul, from the Middle East, Romania, to receive heart transplants and heart operations.
The medical breakthroughs are enormous.
And not only the breakthrough, they have the capability to actually offer, they're not in a subsistence economy anymore. They're a strong economy, and they can provide a lot of aid that we've discussed. And he talked about, the doors are opening, certainly with Asia, as we've discussed. Record Indian investment, record Chinese investment, record trade to Asia, as well as we were discussing the other day, to Africa. He said, well, my last trip I visited 7 countries and met with 7 heads of states. The next trip I'm going to West Africa. I'm going to meet 17 countries, 17 heads of states. And then he says, our capability, particularly in cyber, to fight terrorism, we're a global, Israel, he said, is a global cyber power. He didn't say 1, 2, but certainly number 3, I guess, behind the United States and Russia. And in offensive capabilities and defensive capabilities, everybody needs help in cyber. This is the frontier, and basically wrapped it up with, you started talking TTP. And TTP, the first T was technology for everything. And that opens the doors. Even he said to the Gulf states, he said the relations with Egypt of his cousin have never been better. There's a backdoor channel with the Saudis, a backdoor channel with the Gulf. Then he talked about the second T. T equals terrorism, anti-terrorism. And he mentioned how that plays into the cyber and the skills that they have for counterinsurgency warfare. And he says 3, all of this will eventually lead to peace, as the world gets a cohesive approach to fight global Islamic terrorism. Israel will be at the forefront of that, and they won't just be defending their own interests; they'll be helping, the good nations of the world. And he was very, very optimistic. Relations are opening with the Sunni states. He says best relations with Egypt, incredible relations with Jordan at the moment. Jordan's getting water, food, aid. Great relations with Russia, and as we discussed, Asia, it's a record. And, one of the big untold stories is America has taken the eye off the ball, Africa. And the Israelis have been actually on the ground very much involved for the last, 20, 30 years in Africa.
It's sounding so positive, Gold. You make such a wonderful case.
Just quoting the Prime Minister.
And what's wonderful about Israel, if I can weigh in, is Israel is such a multicultural country. You go to Israel and you see people of all colors. It's always fascinated me how you see the Ethiopians that were rescued and brought. People were brought from Ethiopia who'd never seen an aeroplane, let alone been in an aeroplane, were brought to Israel. You had people from all the Arab countries that were welcomed when they were thrown out of the Arab countries. So it really is the epitome of a rainbow nation.
The Ethiopians, the Indians.
The Ethiopians, the Indians, everybody. I mean, it's just a haven. People want to go and work there. That's because their jobs creation. It's very hard. Even when the Sudanese try to make their way through Egypt, it breaks my heart. They want to really go to Israel, where they've from being persecuted in southern Sudan because they are dark-skinned Muslims and the light-skinned Muslims don't like them and are killing them in southern Sudan. They try and make their way to Israel.
Huge story that these dark-skinned Muslims walk, north across the Sudanese desert, somehow survive getting through Egypt, have to cross the Sinai. Can't be an easy task if you're underfunded, and land up in the Negev and say, help, we want to stay here. I mean, it speaks for itself. But
Israel is such a democratic country in all ways. We just talked about, the color of people's skins being so
Correct.
such a range. But of course, we always speak about how gays and lesbians are free. It's
But
just-
as we were discussing at the break, coming out of a very, very difficult 8 years with Obama going after them right from the start, going after the Israelis, particularly on settlements and everything else, it's a miracle that they've taken it this far and done that well. And now we'll catch the wave of the Trump presidency, which I'm sure will be very good.
Thank you so much for your contributions, for always sharing your wisdom. We appreciate that, Goldie, and we leave on a wonderful, positive note. Look forward to being back with you next Monday, and thank you to WVOX.